John McCain is renowned for saying he does not know much about the economy and for parading around those advisors of his who he says do know something about the economy. Our third story tonight, a countdown special report on the price of gas and how McCain's chief economic advisor, among others, helped create and defend pivotal legislation that unleashed speculators to run up gas prices. It is, in essence, a legalized form of insider trading, deregulation that lets speculators overwhelm trading in oil futures, those complicated contracts that let commercial users of oil hedge their bets about future price and supply fluctuations by agreeing to prices and delivery dates ahead of time. Since this legislation passed, gasoline prices have more than doubled, and commodity traders have made tens of millions of dollars, devastating thousands of small companies that deal in oil and creating the risk of a speculative bubble popping. How does McCain fit in? The road connecting him to $4 gas begins with Enron. Soon after Enron's birth as a power supplier in the 1980s, CEO Ken Lay decided he could make more money betting on electricity futures, especially if government regulators didn't stop him from cornering the market and gaming the system. Under the first President Bush, an obscure agency called the Commodity Futures Trading Commission obliged Ken Lay. The CFTC chairwoman, Wendy Graham, left Enron alone. When Bill Clinton beat Bush, it took only 1 week before Enron asked Graham to lock in her hands-off position as official CFTC policy. Graham started the process. The CFTC approved it after she left on Clinton's inauguration day. 5 weeks later, she took a part-time post on Enron's board of directors and wound up earning more than $900,000 over the next decade. Clinton never undid Graham's changes. Fast forward to the year 2000 and Bush v. Gore. In the chaos of constitutional crisis, Enron got a law passed containing what is now known as the Enron loophole. Where Graham deregulated individual trades, the Enron loophole deregulated entire markets, online markets. Enron had just started its own online market and set its sights on the state of California. Over the next 6 months, California suffered 38 rolling blackouts as Enron used artificial shortages, bogus deals, and total knowledge of the market as sole owner of its own online market to treble California's energy bills. In the dark, regulators had less power than California did, leaving Enron laughing about it.
All the money you guys stole from those poor grandmothers of California?
Yeah, Grandma Millie, man.
Yeah, now she wants money back for all the power you charged jammed right up her $250 a megawatt hour.
The Enron loophole applied to all energy commodities, oil, propane, natural gas. So today, oil futures are driven by speculators, free from any regulatory oversight. Now you can't just blame OPEC anymore. British Petroleum paid $303 million to settle charges. It cornered the propane market in 2004, inflating heating costs for 7 million American homes. 2 years ago, a Republican Senate report recognized what speculators have done and blamed the Enron loophole. 2 weeks ago, the Senate Commerce Committee heard testimony about the Enron loophole's effect on the price of a barrel of oil.
The speculators are not just placing bets in these futures markets. They're saying, gosh, if I can control the price of heating oil, I'm going to go out and buy heating oil. So you have Morgan Stanley is the biggest heating oil owner in New England.
The idea is to put the words energy back in so that we can actually go back to where we were before this, what Dr. Cooper calls the foolish but affectionately called Enron loophole, got put into the law.
Yes, overnight that will bring down the price of crude oil. You get at least a 25% drop in the cost of oil and a corresponding drop in the cost of gasoline. Some people estimate 50%.
The speculative bubble in petroleum markets has cost the average American household about $1,500 in increased gasoline, natural gas, and electricity expenditures in the 2 years since the Senate Permanent Committee on Investigations first called attention to the problem. The Senate knew about this problem 2 years ago.
John McCain seemed to understand this problem even earlier. In 2002 and 2003, he voted with the minority to close the Enron loophole. We're all tainted by Enron's money, he said. Enron made a sound investment in Washington. It did them a lot of good. Where they really do well is around the edges, the insertion of an amendment, the Enron loophole, into an appropriations bill. But for most of this campaign, McCain has offered explanations other than the influence of speculators and remedies other than regulation.
We can develop alternate energy sources.
Will alternative energy fix things without closing the Enron loophole?
And what's going to happen when you get all this new clean energy is the banks are going to go into those markets and rob those guys blind, like they're robbing the gas station owners and heating oil dealers in this country right now.
What about McCain's idea to stop filling America's strategic reserve?
These institutions acting as a herd are accumulating much larger, or setting aside much larger reserves than the strategic reserve is. It's a multiple.
John McCain doesn't talk about the Enron loophole anymore. One McCain advisor reportedly said he no longer even has a position on it. And when the bipartisan Farm Bill shut the Enron loophole last month, John McCain opposed the Farm Bill, citing its spending levels. What changed? Since 2006, John McCain's top economic advisor has been former Texas Senator Phil Gramm, husband of the former CFTC head who then joined Enron. McCain chaired Graham's 1996 presidential race with Ken Lay as regional chairman. It was Graham who passed the Enron loophole, partially written by Enron itself, with no hearings, with no debate. It was Graham who stopped Democrats from closing the Enron loophole, and it was Graham who became vice chairman at the Swiss financial firm UBS in 2002, less than a year after UBS bought the shattered remains of Enron's energy trading arm. Federal lobbying forms reviewed by Countdown show that Graham lobbied Congress about commodity trading rules in 2006 and that his company, specifically his former aide John Sabercool, now a UBS lobbyist, lobbied the Senate as recently as last year against the Close the Enron Loophole Act, without actually calling it that. McCain's finance co-chair, Wayne Berman, lobbied just last year for Chevron and for the American Petroleum Institute against the Price Gouging Prevention Act. And this year, the lobbying firm for which Berman serves as managing director was hired by the New York Mercantile Exchange to lobby against the Close the Enron Loophole Act. In fact, McCain's top campaign advisor, controversial lobbyist Charlie Black, was paid $140,000 by J.P. Morgan back in 2000 for the sole purpose of lobbying Congress to pass the Commodity Futures Modernization Act, the same act that contained the Enron loophole. McCain skipped this month's hearing on gas prices, but this week, after committee member Maria Cantwell pushed the Bush administration to investigate, McCain finally changed his tune in public.
We must reform the laws and regulations governing the oil futures market.
Senator John McCain, however, still has not mentioned the Enron loophole. Still has Graham and Berman and Black heading his campaign, writing his economic policy. And when Senator Cantwell sent a letter asking the CFTC to cut off a new loophole that lets U.S. speculators channel trades unregulated through London and Dubai, John McCain declined to sign it. Senator Obama as well has an advisor who has lobbied for the American Petroleum Institute. Obama reportedly opposed the Enron loophole and voted for that farm bill that contained a closure of it. In an email today, the McCain campaign did not address our reporting on his advisors, but pointed instead to his 2003 vote against the Enron loophole and said, quote, Senator McCain's opposition to the farm bill had absolutely nothing to do with this issue, but rather the billions in pork barrel projects and subsidies in the bill that are sure to do more harm than good for most farmers, consumers, and taxpayers.